You're watching Haunted New Orleans.
What I did was a lot of research about the Holt Cemetery. I was really curious about it. It's a place I've been going to, I've been drawn to over many years since I've lived in New Orleans. What got my attention about it was not only its in-ground burials, but it's got the first crematorium in the city of New Orleans. It was founded by Dr. Joseph Holt in an attempt to keep down the yellow fever epidemics in the city. It was a place where the poor could be buried immediately as opposed to being left laying on the streets to disintegrate. I've been doing a lot of research with people who have relatives buried in there, and all of them have some explanation as to what kind of activity goes on. There's nothing I've found specific to one particular grave or another, but all of them believe it's because whereas the above ground cemeteries use multiple burials, but it's supposed to be that way. They're recycled, they're not really on top of one another. This is in-ground burial where you have your grandmother 6 feet down and your grandfather 3 feet down and your children right up near the surface of the ground. Oftentimes when it rains, the coffins rot, body parts come out of the ground. I've seen entire hands and skulls coming out of the ground. I've seen arms and fingers, and bones are just basically plowed up when they cut the grass and things like that. So the people I've spoken to whose family are buried in there because they can't afford a real cemetery burial like the St. Louis No. 1 or the St. Roch Cemetery, they believe their spirits are at rest because their bones are hanging out all over the grounds. So a couple of friends and I got together. We brought our video cameras and our tape recorders and just regular cameras to see if we can catch anything. The moon was just outrageously red for no apparent reason, and we could see people's shadows moving all around the tree as if they were circling us. It was really bizarre, so we took a lot of pictures, and that's where we got the heaviest ectoplasm and the most orbs. Orbs don't mean a whole lot to many people, but of course it can be explained away easily, but these were very unusual in that they had color. They were half orbs. Some of them appeared to have faces in them, and they were just extremely bright. Ectoplasm is believed to be a forming of spirits. Usually it's moisture or something being pulled together by a spirit or an entity. It comes up on film, and what it looks like is smoke or fog or mist. We're not sure exactly what causes it, but the general belief is that a spirit is trying to form into something recognizable to a person. Usually it's because it's colder there, the condensation pulls to that area, and so it makes a shape.
Many people don't realize that the cemeteries are full of restless spirits that can actually attach themselves to people. Oftentimes these spirits will attach temporarily and eventually go back to where they came from. But sometimes people unwittingly walk into a situation where a spirit from either this lifetime or perhaps another actually attaches to them and goes home with them. I recently had a call from a gentleman who had a very unique experience in one of our cemeteries. He was wandering around taking photographs, as people love to do here in New Orleans, and he stumbled across a tomb that was very intriguing to him. It was the tomb of a young boy, and it said nothing on it but, "Mother, I'm going to play." Fascinated by the inscription on the tomb, he moved in for a closer look. He touched the tomb. Little did he know the series of events that would take place over the next 20 years. He finally called me and told me that this ghost had been haunting him all this time, and he wanted to find out how the boy died. There was very little information about the tomb, but I was able to trace down a death record. And when I brought it to him, not only was he shocked to see that the boy did indeed drown, but he was even more horrified to see that the address for the young child was several doors down from his Governor Nichols home, a house that he grew up in himself, a family home, and he lived there until he was 10 years old, the exact age that the boy was when he drowned. The ghost still haunts him today, and to this day, no one can figure out why.
Now, if people go to a cemetery, depending on what kind of work they're doing, they'll mostly take skulls, or they'll mostly, use bones for different, concoctions or portions. But for the most part, most voodoo people, they don't go themselves to do that kind of activity, but they have people who are grave robbers who they, may cater to get certain things that they need, if and when they need them. But for the most part, the cemetery is sacred, and you don't go there to grave rob or disturb the dead. You kind of stay away from that kind of activity.
when I first started with the tour company, I started out as tour security. I walked along with the tour to make sure that no drunk miscreants would harass the group. And I never really bought into the whole ghost legends and lore. I didn't believe in ghosts. I've never seen one. And walking through the cemetery and the cemetery tours, we used to see bones. And it was the craziest thing. I'm born and raised here all my life, and I never realized there were actual bones just hanging out in the cemetery. And I thought it was the coolest thing to pick one up and take it home. Hey, check it out, I got a human bone. And I guess I was a young kid and really didn't realize or respect what I was doing. And it wasn't 24 hours after I took that bone home, I started believing in the supernatural. On one occasion, I think about 2 days after I picked up the bone, I woke up and I saw a blob on the ceiling moving around. And yeah, sometimes you wake up and you kind of got to adjust your eyes for a second, and it didn't happen that way. I mean, I looked at this thing and stared at it for about 10 seconds and saw an apparition moving across the ceiling and then slowly disappear into the ceiling. And I was speechless. I mean, I immediately picked up the phone and called Kalila. I think it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and she yelled at me. But I was scared to death. Well, she told me to immediately bring that bone back to the cemetery and put it back where it was, and to apologize to the spirit that I had taken it from. Again, I always thought this was kind of a ridiculous thing, but I did exactly what she said to do, because there's no question. There is no question that I saw what I saw.